So we're on the record in docket 24-03562 and 24-03009. That is people of the state of Michigan versus Robert Emery. Will the parties please introduce themselves for the record? Mrs. Zell.
Gabrielle Zell, Assistant Prosecutor for the people.
Mr. Sturdivant.
Daniel Sturdivant for Mr. Emery, who is here in the courtroom standing to my right.
And sir, you are Robert Carl Emery, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. This is time set for a preliminary examination on both of these files that were called. Mrs. Zell, how are we proceeding?
Your Honor, it's my understanding that the defense today would like to waive the preliminary exam to take advantage of a referral to Judge Jamo's mental health court.
All right, and is that a fair statement, Mr. Sturdivant, that Mr. Emery is going to waive the preliminary examination on both files, and we'll treat them different, then we'll treat one after the other because the documentation will have to be signed on both files in order to go to circuit court, and then the understanding is to apply to the specialty court that's been provided there.
That's a fair enough statement, Judge. It's my understanding it was just unconditional waiver on both files, and I trust the prosecutor's office. We've had discussions about getting screened for mental health court, so that's the game plan.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to inquire twice of your client, but may I inquire of your client of his waiver of the preliminary examination on 3562, Mr. Sturdivant?
Yes.
Mr. Emery, you understand that on file 24-03562, you have the right to a preliminary examination. A preliminary examination is a probable cause hearing in which the people would have to prove by probable cause evidence that a crime has been committed and the identity of the person who committed that crime. You are represented today by Attorney Daniel Sturdivant, and he would be present to cross-examine any witnesses or contest any charges brought against you by the people of the state of Michigan. It is my understanding it is your wish today to waive your right to a preliminary examination on file 24-03562 and have this case continue to circuit court where discussions and the negotiations will continue in regards to the specialty court, etc. Mr. Emery, is it your wish today to waive your right to a preliminary examination on this file?
Yeah.
Ms. Zell, do you also waive the people's right to a preliminary examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, I find the waiver of the preliminary examination be knowing, voluntarily, and accurately made. And I will provide the documentation on that file for the parties to sign. And thank you, Ms. Leviak. I'm on the record back on the record in docket 24-03562. All the parties have signed the paperwork for documentation. I'm going to indicate that this examination was waived on today's date, which is January 10th, 2025. Is there anything else to come to the court's attention before I sign the bind over documentation of Mrs. Zell?
Not for the people.
Mr. Sturdivant?
Nothing for the defense.
All right. So in regards to this file 24-03562, and we'll do the next file next. Please keep in contact with your attorney, Mr. Sturdivant. You will get your next date to appear in circuit court from Mr. Sturdivant. Your time in district court is done. All right, sir?
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and sign this document, and then we'll go on to the next one. And that's all for the record in 24-03562. And then similarly in 24-03009, The parties have already introduced themselves to the record, and this is also going to be an unconditional waiver. Is that correct, Mrs. Zell?
Correct, Your Honor.
All right. In regards to this file, Mr. Sturtevant, may I inquire of your client of their waiver of the preliminary examination?
Yes.
Mr. Emery, you have on this file, which is 2403009, you have the right to a preliminary examination within 21 days of your date of arraignment. The preliminary examination is a probable cause hearing, not unlike the last file, in which the people would have to prove by probable cause evidence that a crime has been committed and the identity of the person who committed that crime. You are represented today by Attorney Daniel Sturtevant, and he would be present to cross-examine any witnesses or contest any charges brought against you by the people of the state of Michigan. It is my understanding it is your wish today to waive your right to preliminary examination, have this case go on to circuit court, while there's still discussions concerning the specialty court and circuit court. Is it your wish today to waive your right to preliminary examination?
Yeah.
Mrs. Zell, do people also waive their right to preliminary examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, I find the preliminary examination to be knowing, voluntarily, and accurately made, and we will sign the documentation on this file.
Your Honor, the waiver form does indicate Sarah Donnelly as counsel. Can I cross her out?
Absolutely. Or you can just cross it out. But-
I already.
All right. May not look as neat as, but all right, so back on the record in docket 2403009, and all parties signed the bind over documentation. I will indicate that the examination was waived on today's date, which is January 10th, 2025. Is there anything else to come to the court's attention before I sign the bind over documentation, Mrs. Zell?
Not for the people.
Mr. Sturtevant?
No, thank you.
All right. Mr. Emery, your time in district court is done on this file also, and you'll get your next date to appear in circuit court by your attorney, Mr. Sturtevant. All right, sir? All right. Anything else for the record on this file, Mrs. Zell?
Not for the people.
Mr. Sturtevant?
Nothing.
You should be all set. Thank you for your appearance today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now we had
Gerow.
we had a sentencing, and then we had more PCCs. Mr. DeBruin, is Mr. Short here?
She is.
You can come on.
Right now, she does want to go to her. Just
Good morning, Judge. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. DeBruin. How are you?
Doing well.
I'm so sorry.
So we're on the record in docket 2402936. That's people of the state of Michigan versus Mark Short. Will the parties please introduce themselves for the record? Mrs. Zell.
Gabrielle Zell, Assistant Prosecutor for the people.
Mr. Bruin.
Tiffany DeBruin on behalf of Mr. Short, who is currently standing to my right at council table.
And sir, you are Mark Short, is that correct?
I am correct.
Thank you. This is the time set for a sentencing today. Mrs. Zell, is there any restitution in this matter?
I do not believe so. Your Honor.
All right, and then I'll come back to you for allocation purposes. Mr. Bruin, you've had the opportunity to go through the pre-sentence report with your client.
Yes, Judge.
Any additions, deletions, or corrections from the pre-sentence report?
Judge, just on the second page under overall impression, under the second paragraph, it states that he stated during his interview, he consumed a small amount of drugs and then ran when approached by them, meaning the police. I spoke with him. That is the one thing he does not recall saying. I know what the police report says. I know what the indication is from the probation officer. Certainly, we wanted to indicate that was contested by him.
All right.
He did not use drugs prior to his interaction with them. He had the drugs on him, on his person.
All right. All right. So I'll indicate that's contested. Anything else on the pre-sentence report, Mr. Bruin?
No, Your Honor, but I did want to make sure the court received the substance abuse evaluation and the masked screening test. I apologize for the tardiness of it, but I did submit that to court staff and I think they forwarded to probation department.
Yeah, well, let's print it out. Because I don't have it. I don't think I have it in the file. But I do want it to be a part of the court file.
Yes, Judge, I appreciate that. I have one, but I unfortunately wrote notes on mine.
No, we'll print that one out and put it in the file.
Thank you, Judge.
Just waiting.
Allocution, Mr. Bruin.
Thank you, Judge. I know that the court looks at the four purposes of sentencing, that being punishment, deterrence, rehabilitation, and protection of society. I think the pre-sentence report kind of sums up that Mr. Short is not the criminal of the century. He made a poor decision on this date. He is gainfully employed and has been for 4 years. He also, I know the substance abuse evaluation completed by Mr. Short indicates that there's a recommendation for him to complete a drug of abuse education class. He is approximately halfway through that class right now, and I believe he will be completing it shortly. He's been gainfully employed for 4 years at Sleepwalker Brewery. He has a really big support system and the staff and the owners there. So I know that that's kind of his main source of just kind of, it's his main source of income. He has a lot of friends. He also, I was reviewing the dash cam and the body cam footage here. He has a dog that he just adores, and this dog is beautiful. So that's another big part of his support system. He moved back to Michigan in 2013 and Lansing in 2020. He has roots here, Judge. He's not going anywhere. I think the recommendations are appropriate, and truly he is willing to do whatever he needs to show the court that he can be successful and complete this term of probation. I would ask that the court follow the recommendation and grant him 7411 and show you that he can do this. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Mr. Bruin. Mrs. Zell, anything you'd like to say on Mr. Short's file for sentencing?
There's not, Your Honor. We would leave it up to the court's discretion.
All right, thank you. Mr. Short, Mr. Bruin has spoken eloquently on your behalf. Is there anything you'd like to say to the court before the court passes sentence?
I would just like to say I'm aware that what happened was a very poor decision, and it will not happen again. And yeah, I will do everything in my power and anything that you ask me to do.
All right, Mr. Short. We'll talk about the sentence because I do have a purpose for the sentence here, but it is right in line with what Mr. Bruin has indicated. It is ordered that on this case on the use of methamphetamine from the guilty plea of October 25th, 2024, that you spend 0 days in jail. Credit, I'm going to say 2 days in jail, credit for 2 days previously served. So and I'm just going to put you on regular probation. Okay. So the fines and costs on the possession of marijuana, and I'll give you full indication of that, are $200 fine, $200 cost, crime victims' rights fee of $75, state minimum court cost fee of $50, and then probation for 8 months at $30 a month. And I'll give you a full total for that. That's 240 plus 50 plus 75 plus 400. And that's 765 that can be paid over the course of the 8 months probation. Probation is acceptable via Zoom. The 7411, I'm going to grant your 7411 status. That's really kind of the the goal here is to get this so you don't have a record.
Yes.
And then I'll tell you why the other goal. The other goal is its use of methamphetamine, and it is not the, I certainly don't treat this as the case of the century. All right. However, I'm not concerned about Mark Short in the next 8 months, because the next 8 months you're going to be responsible to me.
Yeah.
I'm really concerned about Mark Short in the next 10 years, because you've got to make good decisions and you have to make decisions. So I'm going to look at this as a learning experience. All right. This is a learning experience to make good decisions. And then we've got to figure out, is there a problem here with some type of amphetamine or methamphetamine? I don't see it. And the assessment would indicate that, but 8 months of probation is what you're going to have to do. Most people come violating probation because they test dirty. I'd say that's 80% are testing dirty. We'll know pretty soon, if you've got a problem or you don't have a problem. But use this time to use it as seeing us as a resource. Take any direction or anything that we can help you with. If there is an addictive problem, is there not? Then it's just a learning point, and we just learn from this and move on. All right. So I'm going to indicate that no assaultive or threatening behavior is a part of probation. No use of possession, alcohol, marijuana, controlled substance. I know you work at a brewery. Okay.
Yeah.
I also know they serve pizza at that brewery.
Yeah.
So it's restaurant, and so I'm not making this. I'm not saying you can't go to work. I'm not.
Yeah.
Nothing along those lines. I just know that there's going to be temptation there, and you're gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah.
But you've got the rest of your life to deal with that. It just doesn't go away today. Okay. Submit to random PBTs or urinalysis as directed by your probation agent. That'll be Nathaniel Neves. I am assuming he wrote the report. It's a pretty easy guy to work with for the most part. Submit to random PBTs, no bars or nightclubs. Substance abuse, education, outpatient substance abuse, counseling field held in abeyance pending substance abuse assessment, which we have now. So, and the substance abuse, there was, as I've read it before, that there are no signs of loss of control. There doesn't seem to be a substance abuse problem, but keep in contact based on the assessment, keep in contact with your probation agent.
Okay.
It really might come down to testing. Okay. If you start testing dirty, then we're going to get all in your business.
Yeah.
That's what we're supposed to do.
That won't be an issue.
Okay. Obtain and maintain employment that we've talked about, not purchase or possess firearms, ammunitions, or weapons of any time, and complete substance abuse assessment as directed, which you've already done. So go down to the 5th floor and just make sure. I think it's Mr. Neves because he wrote the report. Go down and make sure it's with him, that you understand how you're supposed to do everything.
Okay.
But that's really what we're looking at.
Okay.
Is there a substance abuse issue, or is this just a learning experience? And then you understand all the ramifications of you going to work, and you're going to be tempted on a daily basis at work, because that's the nature of it.
Yeah.
And then you've got to make a decision. All right. All right. Anything else for the record in 2402936, Mrs. L?
Not for the people.
Mr. Bruin.
No, Judge.
All right. Mr. Short, you're all set. Thank you for your.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Mrs. L and I approach on a matter real quick.
Absolutely. This always goes in the one I don't think it's supposed to go on.
Because we're not muted.
Just true, because I wasn't work for a while.
So, all right, Ms. Garrow, we're going to call your case docket 2403-278. That is People of the State of Michigan versus Danielle Garrow. Will the parties please introduce themselves for the record? Mrs. Zell.
Gabrielle Zell, Assistant Prosecutor for the People.
Ms. Schroeder.
Thank you, Your Honor. Assistant Public Defender Aaron Schroeder on behalf of Miss Garrow, who is present via Zoom. She was here in the courthouse earlier. Are you there, Miss Garrow?
Yes, I'm here.
All right.
Okay, we can't.
And ma'am, you are Danielle Garrow, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, and you can hear me all right, Ms. Garrow?
Yes.
All right, thank you. This is the time set for a probable cause conference. Mrs. Zell, how are we proceeding?
Your Honor, it's my understanding that the defense will be asking for an adjournment today so that we can work on getting the defendant into drug court.
All right.
And
Is that a fair statement, Ms. Schroeder?
it is, Your Honor, and just for the record here, Miss Garrow was found as eligible for drug court by Maria Taylor of the 54B Drug Court and Probation Office. There was a question regarding transportation as to distance from where she lives and to where the court is. Ms. Garrow and I have talked about this. She indicates she has reliable transportation. She will be. So I have communicated to Ms. Taylor that we will be accepting the position in drug court if it's still available, and we just need some additional time.
All right, and that's in 50, is that 55th or 54B?
54B, Your Honor.
All right, and my understanding is that it takes about 30 days, right? I mean, that's.
Because they gotta get all the paperwork.
Yeah, they've got, it's a
transferred.
bureaucratic nightmare for getting the paperwork. And then whatever they decide, that's done in that court. So the plea and everything's done in that court. If there's anything to that effect. Ms. Garrow, is that your understanding? We're gonna adjourn this matter for a specialty court in East Lansing to take this matter. And so we need some time to do the paperwork to make sure that they have the file. So we're adjourning, both parties are requesting an adjournment. Is that your understanding, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. So we'll adjourn, and I'd say be safe 30 days, right?
I think that would be appropriate, Your
So
Honor.
I would do it 2 weeks, but then we'd be back asking.
We
for
would
another
be
2
back
weeks.
asking,
Yeah.
I have a feeling with
So-
the holidays, everything's still being catched up.
So we'll adjourn for 30 days for specialty court for 54B. We'll set it for PCC. Yeah.
This will be the PCC, doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't.
I didn't know if it
And she
mattered.
waived the 21 day on December 6th.
No, February 7th at 8:30.
I hate to set this for prelim knowing that it's going to another court. It does, that's,
Yes.
I don't want to take that time slot. All right, so I've set it for February 7th at 8:30. Ma'am, you will get notice sent to your last known address the court has on Curtis Avenue. Is that still a good address for you, ma'am?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it's set for February 7th, and then I'll wait to hear from council. When we can reset it once all the paperwork's done. Anything else for the record in 2403-278, Ms. Zell?
Not for the people.
Ms. Schroeder?
Now for the defense, thank you.
All right, Ms. Guerrero, you're all set. Thank you for your appearance today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Schroeder. All right. Mr. Etheridge, are you ready to proceed on Mr. Donald?
Yes, Your Honor. That'll be
All
a
right.
PE waiver.
All right. All right. So let's call to the record docket 2403-789. That's people of the state of Michigan versus Carl Donald Jr. Will the parties please introduce themselves for the record? Mrs. Zell.
Gabrielle Zell, Assistant Prosecutor for the people.
Mr. Etheridge.
Good morning, Your Honor. Attorney Derek Hesper, Office of Public Defender, on behalf of Mr. Donald. Mr. Donald and I are both appearing by video.
All right. And sir, you are Carl Donald, is that correct?
Yes.
And you can hear me all right, Mr. Donald?
Yes.
All right, thank you. This is the time set for a probable cause conference. It's my understanding this is going to be a waiver of the preliminary examination. Is that your understanding, Mrs. Zell?
That is my understanding.
Is that a fair statement, Mr. Etheridge?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so this is an unconditional waiver with negotiations to continue in circuit court. Is that a fair statement, Mr. Etheridge?
Yes, Your Honor, but there is a current plea offer to plead to the charge with the prosecutor's consent to HYTA.
Okay, is that a fair statement, Mrs. Zell?
That is a fair statement, Your
Okay.
Honor.
So the current offer has been placed on the record. Mr. Etheridge, may I inquire Mr. Donald of his waiver of the preliminary examination?
Yes, sir. Yes, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Donald, you understand you have a right to a preliminary examination today. A preliminary examination is a probable cause hearing in which the people would have to prove by probable cause evidence that a crime has been committed and the identity of the person who committed that crime. You are represented today by Attorney Derek Etheridge, and he would be present to cross-examine any witnesses or contest any charges brought against you by the people of the state of Michigan. It is my understanding, it is your wish today to waive your preliminary examination today, have this case continue to circuit court. An offer has been made that's been placed on the record that you're to plead to the charge and then seek some type of sentencing status. I think that's, what did you say, 76? What was the sentencing status?
HYTA,
Yes,
Your Honor.
I'm sorry.
HYTA. Okay. HYTA status, and those negotiations are to continue in circuit court. Is it your wish today, Mr. Donald, to waive your right to a preliminary examination based on what's been placed on the record?
Yes.
All right. Mrs. Zell, do the people waive their right to a preliminary examination today?
Yes, Your Honor.
I find the waiver of the preliminary examination to be knowing, voluntarily, and accurately made. I'll provide the documentation paperwork to the prosecutor to sign, and then Mr. Etheridge, you and your client can be signed via Zoom. Will that work?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. All right, Mr. Etheridge, you give me permission to sign as of today's date on your behalf the documentation paperwork.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you give permission for Mr. Donald also, Mr. Donald, to sign the documentation, bind over documentation on your behalf. Is that a fair statement, Mr. Etheridge?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Donald, can I sign the documentation via Zoom on your behalf?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to indicate I'm in possession of the documentation for bind over. The examination has been waived on today's date, which is January 10th, 2025. Anything else to come to the court's attention before I sign the bind over documentation, Mrs. Zell?
Not for the people.
Mr. Etheridge?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, Mr. Donald, your time in district court is done now. You're on to circuit court. Will you get your next date for appearance in circuit court from your attorney, Mr. Etheridge? All right, sir?
Okay.
So you
All
don't
right.
have to come
Mr.
back.
Etheridge will reach out to you to let you know when you're supposed to be in court, in circuit court. I think Mr. Etheridge, you indicated, but for one judge, it's automatically a waiver is assigned.
Waiver for all judges, Your Honor. One judge may or may not send out notice, but by local court rule, the circuit court arraignment is automatically waived on all cases unless we ask to have it.
All right, so Mr. Donald, please keep in contact with Mr. Etheridge, and he'll let you know when you should appear in circuit court. All right, sir?
Okay.
All right.
And Mr. Donald, you did not have to appear in this court next week. Your case is moved forward to circuit court, okay? Thank you, sir.
All right, so your next appearance will be in circuit court. Your time in district court is done. Anything, that's all for the record in docket 2403-789. Any questions, Mr. Etheridge or Mr. Donald?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you should be all set. Thank you for your appearance today.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
And you're all set, Mr. Donald.
Your Honor, is that Mr. Morris on post one? If so, could I speak with him in a breakout room?
On post one.
Yes, Your Honor.
And that would be Mr. Morris.
I'm
So
asking.
Mr. Morris, are you there on in post one?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, so Mr. Morris, I'm going to place you in a breakout room with your attorney, Mr. Etheridge, and then we'll come back and put it on the record. Is that a fair statement, Mr. Etheridge?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
So you're already in room one, Mr. Etheridge. You can go back to room one. And then Mr. Morris, I'm going to have you placed in room one.
Just waiting.
And Mr. Pugh, we'll call your case. You can unmute. So Mr. Pugh, we'll call your case. You can unmute. Thank you. All right, sir, we're on the record in docket 2403-787. That is People of the State of Michigan versus Travis Pugh. Will the parties please introduce themselves to the record? Mrs. Zell.
Gabrielle Zell, Assistant Prosecutor for the people.
Mr. Doyle.
Dan Doyle on behalf of Mr. Pugh.
And sir, you are Travis Pugh, is that correct? So you may want to turn on the volume on that. You are Travis Pugh?
Yes, I am.
All right, thank you. And you can hear me all right, Mr. Pugh?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you a little bit.
All right, we can hear you fine also. This is the time set for a probable cause conference. Mrs. L, how are we proceeding?
Your Honor, it's my understanding that we will be leaving this on for a preliminary exam.
So is that a fair statement, Mr. Doyle?
Yes, Your Honor, that's correct.
Okay, so we'll leave on for preliminary examination on January 17th at 8:30. So Mr. Pugh, we'll see you next week on January 17th at 8:30 for preliminary examination. They'll be live on the 6th floor of City Hall of Lansing. Anything else for the record in 2403-787, Mrs. L?
Not for the people.
Mr. Doyle?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, you're all set, Mr. Pugh. We'll see you next week.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so Ezel, right?
Yes.
Sarah Donald.
Mr. Etheridge, are you done meeting with Mr. Morris?
Yes, Your Honor. We're
All
asking.
right, I'm gonna bring him back.
Okay, Your Honor, we're going to ask the court to accept a 21-day waiver. This is likely a forensics referral. I'm trying to gather some mental health records.
All right, so while we have Mr. Morris back from on Polycom, let's go ahead and go on that. I'm only saying that because we lose that person every once in a while on Polycom, and then. All right, so we're on the record in docket 2403-800. That is people of the state of Michigan versus Lauren Morris. Will the parties please introduce themselves for the record? Mrs. L.
Gabrielle Ezel, Assistant Prosecutor for the people.
Mr. Etheridge.
Morning, Honor Attorney Derek Hitchens, also the public defender on behalf of Mr. Morris. Mr. Morris and I are appearing by video. He's appearing from the Union County Jail.
And sir, you are Lauren Morris, is that correct?
Yes, I'm Lauren.
And you can hear me all right, Mr. Morris?
I can hear you.
Thank you. This is the time set for a probable cause conference. Mrs. L, how are we proceeding today, or would you like to defer to Mr. Etheridge?
I will go ahead and defer to Mr. Etheridge.
Mr. Etheridge, for the record, how are we proceeding today?
Your Honor, I've spoken with Mr. Morris in a breakout room. I went over a potential plea resolution with him. At this time, he's not ready to accept it. There is some forensic issues, mental health issues. I'm trying to get some additional information and mental health records. This will likely be a referral to the Center for Forensics. So I'm asking the court to accept a 21-day waiver of the timeline so I can gather information and make that referral. All
right. And so do you have any objection to the waiver of the 21-day rule today?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Etheridge, may I inquire your client of the waiver of the 21-day rule?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Morris, you understand you have a right to a preliminary examination within 21 days of your date of arraignment. A preliminary examination is a probable cause hearing in which the people would have to prove by probable cause evidence that a crime has been committed and the identity of the person who committed that crime. You are represented today by Attorney Derek Etheridge, and he would be present to cross-examine any witnesses or contest any charges brought against you by the people of the state of Michigan. It is my understanding it is your wish to waive your right to a prelim within 21 days, really so Mr. Etheridge can get any record so he can zealously advocate for your defense in regards to mental health records or et cetera. And you wouldn't be waiving your right to a prelim in general. You'd only be waiving your right to a prelim within that 21-day period at your request. Is it your wish today to waive your right to a prelim within 21 days? So, Mr. Morris, is it your wish to waive your right to a prelim within 21 days?
I want to be seen by CMH and get evaluated.
Correct.
Because I don't think 10 years. I don't think 10 years is right for me to get.
Mr. Morris, you and I can talk about that later.
So in order for Mr. Etheridge to have all that information, you're going to have to waive your right to a prelim within the 21-day period. Do you wish to waive your right to a prelim within the 21-day period?
Okay, what's your name again? I'll do that. What's your name again, Your Honor?
Judge Flores?
Judge Flores?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for telling me that, Your Honor. I just didn't realize who I was talking to.
All right. So do you wish to waive your right to a prelim within that 21-day period so Mr. Etheridge can get all the information he needs concerning anything from community mental health?
Yes.
All right, Mrs. L.
No objections.
All right. So we'll waive the prelim for 21 days in order for counsel to get all the community mental health or the mental health records necessary, and we'll reset. And then do you have a time frame, Mr. Etheridge, as to are we looking at 2 weeks, 30 days?
Yeah, and I would ask the court to maybe set it in 30 days for a PCC, and then if it's necessary, we can schedule it then. I believe my paralegals already sent or is in the process of sending releases to try to get the mental health record from CMH as well as a hospital he had been committed to.
All right, perfect. We'll reset for PCC 30 days out,
February 7th at 8:30.
February 7th at 8:30.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. So we'll reset February 7th at 8:30 in order for council to get any records he may need. The 21-day rule has been waived. Anything else for the record in docket 24-03-800, Mrs. Zell?
Not for the people.
Mr. Etheridge?
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. So Mr. Morris, we'll see you on February 7th at 8:30. Thank you today for your appearance, sir. So, Mr. Blackman, are you ready on is it the Buck case?
Yes.
Yes,
Leslie
I am.
Buck.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
All right.
There also should be AAGs on Zoom representing the Department of Treasury regarding the.
Is that Mr. Bobus?
Yes.
Okay.
There
And
might be Miss
Ms.
Johnson.
Johnson.
Yes.
All right. All right. Let's go ahead and call that case. And Mr. Blackman, I've signed the stipulation of counsel that you had with the Public Defender's Office. And ma'am, you are Leslie Buck, is that correct?
I'm sorry, sir. I am a sir, but thank you.
All
It's
right.
a veil.
It
It's a
is.
veil.
It's Leslie L. Buck.
Yes.
Leslie Lynn Buck.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
All right. All right. Thank you. All right. So we're on the record in docket 240364. That is people of the state of Michigan versus Leslie Buck. Will the parties please introduce themselves for the record from the Attorney General's office?
Jennifer Walker for the people.
The Dranko Atomic Bobus for the Michigan Department of Treasury.
Your Honor,
Right.
Fred Black.
Denise
Your Honor, Fred
Johnson for the
Blackman,
Department
I'm sorry. Fred
So,
Blackman.
Ms. Johnson, you're also here from the Department of Treasury?
Yeah, from the Attorney General's office for the Department of Treasury, correct.
All right. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Blackman.
Fred Blackman on behalf of Mr. Buck.
All right. And sir, you are Leslie Buck, is that correct?
Yes, sir, I am.
All right. And you can hear me all right, Mr. Buck?
Yes, sir, I can.
All right. Thank you. This is the time set for a probable cause conference. Ms. Walker, how are we proceeding today?
Yes, Your Honor, there's a couple matters preliminarily that we have to address. And the AAGs from our office representing Treasury did file a tax order so that we will be able to release in discovery all tax documentation and proceed with any witness testimony related to tax records.
And I do have that order, I believe, that was submitted. Order permitting disclosure of information according to MCL 205.281F. I do know that Mr. Blackman, I just signed it, but you may have had some discussions with him. I'm uncertain. Mr. Blackman, do you have any objection to me signing the order for the release of the information?
I do not. We talked yesterday and I agreed and had no problem with you signing that order.
All right. So I'll sign the order in the file.
Okay. Your Honor, I have a second order. It's a protective order. I did speak with Mr. Blackman yesterday. He signed it. I've signed it. We're just asking that the court sign and enter as a stipulated protective order.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Walker.
Yes.
All right. So I'm in possession of the stipulated protective order regarding confidential of discovery materials. This is pretty perfunctory in regards to these cases. And it is signed by yourself, Mr. Blackman, and Ms. Walker. Is that correct, Mr. Blackman?
It is.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and sign the order to that effect. And then, so I've got two signed orders. What's the easiest way? Is it easier for us to submit it or for the AG to submit it to the, I just want to do whatever.
To the clerks?
Yeah, to the clerks.
We'll just send it over.
Let us keep it and we'll just make sure they have it all.
Okay, thank you.
That's probably the easiest way. So I have the two orders and they're both in the file, and then we'll make sure the clerk has them. And then we have a copies if you want to see any of the copies, if you don't, if you want to see the signed original. With the signing of both orders, how did you want to proceed on the PCC, Ms. Walker?
Your Honor, now that those orders are both entered, we will get discovery to defense counsel as soon as possible.
All right.
We anticipate sending him a thumb drive this afternoon. So I'll have all of that. I did speak with Mr. Blackman yesterday. He did anticipate asking for an adjournment today.
All right.
In order to review discovery.
All right, and Mr. Blackman, I know you're just new on the case and they've got to get you discovery on the case. Is that a fair statement that you'd be requesting an adjournment in order to review the discovery and zealously represent your client in defense? Are you seeking a good cause adjournment, or are you seeking a waiver of the 21-day rule?
Judge, we'll just waive the 21-day rule. I talked to Mr. Buck and he understands that. He understands what the 21-day rule is. We both don't have any objection, just waiving that today and setting maybe the PCC in a couple weeks and then the prelim after that.
All right. So Mr. Blackman may inquire of your client, Mr. Buck, of his waiver of the 21-day rule.
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Buck, you understand you have a right to a preliminary examination within 21 days of your date of arraignment. A preliminary examination is a probable cause hearing in which the people would have to prove by probable cause evidence that a crime has been committed and the identity of the person who committed that crime. You are represented today by Attorney Fred Blackman, and he would be present to cross-examine any witnesses or contest any charges brought against you by the people of the state of Michigan. It is my understanding it is your wish to waive your right to a preliminary examination only within that 21-day period. You wouldn't be waiving your right to a prelim in general, and you'd be waiving it within the 21-day period. So Mr. Blackman can get discovery and can zealously represent you in defense of this case. Is it your wish today to waive your right to a prelim within 21 days?
Yes.
All right. Ms. Walker, the people also waive their right to a prelim within 21 days?
Yes.
All right. I find the waiver of the 21-day rule to be knowing, voluntarily, and accurately made. And you indicated time frame 2 weeks?
That's what
Maybe
opposing counsel asked for. I'll leave it to his discretion.
All right. So Mr. Blackman, are you thinking about 2 weeks for PCC?
Yeah, 2 3 weeks for PCC, Judge. And
all right.
Then we'd set a prelim after that.
So what?
We have 2 or 4.
2 or 4, Mr. Blackman?
2 or 4?
That's what I was told. 2 or 4. I would err on 4.
Okay, how about 4? Okay, 4 weeks. I don't know if 4 weeks. And once I get the discovery, I'll be talking with my client, also with the assistant attorney general, and hopefully we can be doing things after that, Judge.
All right, so we'll set it 4 weeks out for
February 7th at 8:30.
February 7th at 8:30. So it's been set, the probable cause conference has been set for February 7th at 8:30. The waiver of the 21-day rule was waived today. And then Mr. Buck, you'll get notice sent to your last known address with the court, which is through your attorney, Mr. Blackman, but also we have your address on Kalamazoo. Is that still a good address for you, sir?
No, it'd be 6735 Millstream Lane.
Mill Street Lane in Lansing?
Yes, sir.
All right, that was updated. That's been updated. Thank you.
No
All right,
problem.
anything else for the record in 2403694, Ms. Walker?
So we just have the PCC. We have not set an exam yet.
Correct. We have set it for PCC and we have the waiver of the 21-day rule.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further from the people.
Mr. Blackman, anything else for 2403694?
One quick thing, Judge. My client and I talked yesterday, and I think part of his conditions of his bond is not to be on the internet or any social media out there. But he's running a business. It's a clothing business and design business that he sells his stuff online. We don't have a problem with him not being on the internet, but can he be on the internet just for the purpose of his business? And that, to that extent.
I have Judge Buchanan has indicated no access to social media, Ms. Walker.
Your Honor, that's how he repeatedly committed these crimes on two different social media accounts and through electronic payments.
Yeah.
So I'm just, I'll leave it to the court. That's what he's, and my understanding was that he had a truck driving business is what he told my agent. I'm not aware of his clothing business.
All right. Mr. Blackman.
I talked with my client about it, and obviously we had, a conversation on the phone about it. His business, the court can inquire my client if the court would about his business or what he's been doing, if that would be satisfactory with the court.
Well, Mr. Buck, what is the nature of your business online that you're requesting?
It's a clothing business. I have an LLC through the state of Michigan. It's my LLC name is Crazy Motion LLC. I had that probably for the past 2 years or so. Yeah. So basically, I also do like custom designs. So if somebody needs like a shirt or something made, I can make those designs and also
Was
basically
Mr.
make
Buck
profit.
seen by pretrial services at all?
I do not know.
Mr. Blackman, because I don't have a report from pretrial services on the file, and that makes me think that this wasn't addressed. And then at arraignment, the judge just indicated no access to media.
Would the court like us to refer to pretrial services to get a report?
Let's refer to pretrial services. Mr. Buck can explain the nature of the business that he's looking towards social media, and the Attorney General will have the opportunity to discuss and contest anything that they see. And then if it comes to me before then, we can address it beforehand, or we can address it on the February 7th date. All right?
Okay.
That's satisfactory, Judge, yes.
All right. So I'm going to refer to pretrial services for a report to be done. To pretrial services. So, Mr. Buck, pretrial services may be in contact with you or with Mr. Blackman in order to set up some type of interview. All right, sir?
Okay.
All right. Anything else for the record in 2403-694, Mr. Blackman?
No, Your Honor.
All right. We've waived the 21-day rule to February 7th at 8:30. That's all for the record in 2403-694. Thank you, everybody, for your appearance today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Leslie, I'll call you later today, okay, about that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
You're all set. Thank you, Mr. Blackman.
Jesus. Jesus. No.
So, Mr. Gordon, we'll call your case. We're on the record in docket 2403-723. That is People of the State of Michigan versus Antonio Gordon. Will the parties please introduce themselves for the record? Mrs. Zell.
Gabrielle Zell, Assistant Prosecutor for the people.
Mr. Etheridge.
Morning, Honor. Attorney Derek Esford, Office of Public Defender, on behalf of Mr. Gordon, who is appearing by video.
And sir, you are Antonio Gordon, is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
And you can hear me all right, Mr. Gordon?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. This is the time set for a probable cause conference on the matter. Mrs. Zell, how are we proceeding?
Your Honor, it's my understanding that the defense will be asking for a waiver of the 21-day rule today.
Is that a fair statement, Mr. Etheridge?
Yes, Your Honor. I was recently assigned to Mr. Gordon. I haven't had the opportunity to speak with him until today. Again, I need time to go over his case and a plea offer that was presented. Your Honor, he also advised me that last night he slipped on ice and broke his leg in 2 places, and he's currently getting medical treatment. He lives in Battle Creek.
Okay.
So we're asking the court to accept a 21-day waiver and set it out maybe 30 days to the February 7th date that I received for the other case.
All right, and we'll set it for PCC?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Etheridge, may I inquire of Mr. Gordon of his waiver of the 21-day rule?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Gordon, you understand you have a right to a preliminary examination within 21 days of your date of arraignment. A preliminary examination is a probable cause hearing in which the people would have to prove by probable cause evidence that a crime has been committed and the identity of the person who committed that crime. You are represented today by Attorney Derek Etheridge, and he would be present to cross-examine any witnesses or cross-examine any witnesses or contest any charges brought against you by the people of the state of Michigan. It is my understanding it is your wish today to waive your right to a preliminary examination within the 21-day period and have Mr. Etheridge get all the discovery from the people of the state of Michigan in order to zealously represent you in this matter. Is it your wish today to waive your right to a preliminary examination within the 21-day period?
Yes.
All right. Do the people also waive their right to a prelim within 21 days?
Yes, Your Honor.
I find the waiver of the 21-day rule to be knowing, voluntarily, and accurately made, and we will reset for PCC 30 days out at, I can't remember the date.
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
We have Mr. Hughes' address, I'm sorry, Mr. Gordon's address on Hughes Road in Lansing. So does he have an updated address I can send the notice to?
Yes. Well, we'll address that. Just what date?
February 7th at 9.
Okay, February 7th at 9. And then, so Mr. Gordon, you'll receive notice, but I want to confirm your address. At arraignment, you gave the address of 5708 Hughes Road, Apartment D, Lansing, Michigan. Is that still a good address for you for notification purposes, or would you prefer a different address?
No, it's not.
All right. So what's a new updated address to send notice to?
Oh, I'm sorry. 89.
Go ahead.
Warren,
89.
89.
89 Warren.
Warren, Warren Street.
Okay.
Battle Creek, Michigan.
And do you have a zip code there, sir?
49014.
All right, so the notification will be sent to 89 Warren Street, Battle Creek, Michigan, 49014. Is that correct, Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
All right. We've set it for PCC on February 7th at 9 o'clock. We've waived the 21-day rule as of today's date. Anything else for the record in 2403723, Mrs. Zelp?
Not for the people.
Mr. Etheridge.
Mr. Gordon, make sure you check in with pretrial services if you haven't.
Yeah, I already did on the 8th.
All right. All right. All right. Thank you. We'll see you on February 7th at 9 o'clock, Mr. Gordon. Thank you for your appearance today.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Etheridge.
Being requested at Judge Simmons, just so you know.
Yeah.
You're all set, Mr. Gordon.
Okay. I can't get out of here.
Hey, you're gonna be over here at 2 o'clock, that. I'll be right back. So there's this like future, sure that going around and hoping that it's fair crime, well, like 25 up. And I just break down the road. There you go. I told I found you telling me right now. That's what we got. Well, still shut it door. No, but met with my attorney once.
Okay.
I can't see anything.
Yeah, I can't either. So in the Ingham Jail Post 2, you probably should unmute. We'll send a message to unmute you.
Judge is Mr. Herrick.
It's Mr. Herrick.
I think we're ready on that one.
I thought we already did Mr. Herrick
I don't think we do.
or Mr. Hurd. Oh, Mr. Herrick is Mr. Goodrich's?
Yes.
All right. All right. So once they unmute, we'll call that. And then Mr. Hurd is incarcerated.
Yes, he's still in ICJ, Your Honor.
All right. We're waiting on, do you want him brought up or put on polycom? I'll put him on polycom.
Polycom would be
Yeah.
sufficient for today's proceeding.
Yeah. So we're kind of waiting for them to put Mr. All right, Mr. Herrick, we're ready on your case. So we're on the record in docket 24026669. That is People of the State of Michigan versus Dustin Herrick. Will the parties please introduce themselves to the record? Mrs. L.
Gabrielle Zell, Assistant Prosecutor for the people.
Mr. Goodrich.
Attorney Luke Goodrich from the Public Defender's Office here to represent Mr. Herrick, who is appearing over polycom from the Ingham County Jail.
And sir, you are Dustin Herrick, is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
All right, you can hear me all right, Mr. Herrick?
I can hear you perfectly.
All right, thank you. This is the time set for a probable cause conference. Mrs. L, how are we proceeding today?
Your Honor, it's my understanding that we will be leaving this on for a preliminary exam.
Okay. Is that a fair statement, Mr. Goodrich?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
So we'll leave on for preliminary examination for October 17th at 8:30. Did I say October? Wow.
You know what you meant.
Yeah, which is almost worse, okay? Because you know exactly what I meant, and I wasn't even close, okay? So we'll leave on for preliminary examination on January 17th at 8:30. Anything else for the record in 24026669, Mrs. L?
Not for the people.
Mr. Goodrich?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Herrick, we'll see you on January 17th at 8:30 next week. Thank you for your appearance, and then we'll call your second file. And that's on the record in 2403-466. That's People of the State of Michigan versus Dustin Herrick. Will the parties please introduce themselves for the record? Mrs. L. I'm sorry, Ms. Walker.
Jennifer Walker for the people.
All right, and Mr. Goodrich.
Attorney Luke Goodrich from the Public Defender's Office here to represent Mr. Herrick, who again is appearing over polycom from the Ingham County Jail today.
And sir, you are Dustin Herrick, is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. And you can hear me all right, Mr. Herrick, once again?
Yes, sir.
All right. This is the time set for a probable cause conference. Ms. Walker, how we proceed?
Your Honor, I believe that the defendant will be waiving his exam
All
and
right.
waiving up to circuit court.
Is that a fair statement, Mr. Goodrich?
Yes, Your Honor.
And so this is a unconditional waiver to circuit court where negotiations are going to continue. Is that correct, Ms. Walker?
Yes.
And that's a fair statement, Mr. Goodrich?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Goodrich, may I inquire Mr. Herrick of his waiver of the preliminary examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Herrick, you understand you have a right to a preliminary examination today. A preliminary examination is a probable cause hearing in which the people would have to prove by probable cause evidence that a crime has been committed and the identity of the person who committed that crime. You are represented today by attorney Luke Goodrich, and he would be present to cross-examine any witnesses or contest any charges brought against you by the people of the state of Michigan. It is my understanding it is your wish today to unconditionally waive your right to a preliminary examination, have this case leave district court and go to circuit court where negotiations are going to continue on the matter. Is it your wish today to waive your right to a preliminary examination on this file today?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Do the people also waive, does the Attorney General also waive their right to a preliminary examination?
Yes.
All right. We find the waiver of the preliminary examination be knowing, voluntarily, and accurately made. And I'll provide the bind over documentation on that file. All right, thank you, Megan. I am in possession of the bind over documentation on 2403-466, signed by all the parties. I will indicate that the examination was waived on today's date, which is January 10th, 2025. Is there anything else to come to the court's attention before the court signs the bind over documentation, Ms. Walker?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Goodrich?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Herrick, your time in district court on this file, which is 2403-466, the support file is done. You'll get your next date from your attorney, Mr. Goodrich, to appear in circuit court. Your time in district court is done on this file. On the other file, I'll see you next week. We've left that on for preliminary examination. Do you understand that, Mr. Herrick?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. I will sign the bind over documentation accordingly. And that's all for the record on file 2403-466. Thank you, everybody, for your appearance.
Thank you.
Your Honor.
You're all set, Mr. Herrick.
Thank you.
All right, sir, on post 2, would you please identify yourself?
Heard.
Eric, that's it, Mr. Herrick. Okay. All right, Mr. Hurd, we'll call your case. We're on the record in 2 files, docket 2401-836 and docket 2401-305. That's people of the state of Michigan versus Eric Hurd Jr. Will the parties please introduce themselves for the record? Mrs. Up.
Gabrielle Zell, Assistant Prosecutor for the people.
Mr. Austin.
Morning, Your Honor. Jared Austin appearing on behalf of Mr. Hurd in both files. Mr. Hurd appears with us remotely from Ingham County Jail.
And sir, you are Eric Hurd, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, and you can hear me all right, Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Thank you. This is the time set for a forensic review of competency, and I will indicate my understanding for the record and then turn it over to counsel to make a record. It's my understanding that in July, Mr. Hurd was found incompetent, but seeking competency status. And then we set it for August, and we hadn't heard from any type of update. We've set it for November, and we hadn't heard any type of update. And then we set it as control date for today's date, which is January 10th. And we do not have any update. This started in June 19th of 2024. So it'd be June of last year. So the clock is kind of running. Is that your understanding of Mrs. L?
That is my understanding, Your Honor.
All right. And so we're kind of waiting for an update concerning the forensic review. We've been in contact with I should say the psyche for the Center for Forensic update, Mr. Austin.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. This is my understanding as well. The only thing I would add to that, I can't remember if it was the last time we were in court, but there was, apart from the initial finding that Mr. Hurd was presently not competent but could be restored, there was an updated report sometime thereafter. My reading of that seemed to indicate that it was at least the same, if not maybe a little worse. My reading of that report, I just cannot recall if that was the last time we were in court or the time before, but we have not received any new status updates or reports since then. So it's unclear at this point as to what the forensic center is or has been doing, if anything, or what the status is on Mr. Hurd's competency or what the prognosis is from the forensic center's perspective. I know Your Honor's office sent email correspondence to the forensic center yesterday. We got a response from them, like a canned response saying we're in receipt of your email and we'll respond to it when we respond to it. There's not been any new news, status, or updates or reports that I'm aware of.
Right, and counsel's correct. We did receive a report on October 30th, 2024, after July, indicating that nothing had changed. If anything, it was not a helpful update, so to speak, at this time, because the defendant remained incompetent, but was able to be restored, which is the same thing they said in July, which is why we're waiting for an update. My office has been in contact with them, and this is on 2 felony files. So my indication is to set this out for a control date once again, and then still be in contact with the evaluation. We need a report in order to tell us what's going on, if they know. If they don't, I think we start looking at the 15-month period in regards to whether he can be brought to competence. That might be an issue at this time. We will explore that in 60 days.
That's fine by me.
We'll explore that in 60 days. And at that time, I might take some discussion on the status of the case. And then, because we'll be closer to the 15-month period, we can talk about what the plan is. Because I have show caused the forensic, and then all of a sudden we get a report. But that's kind of the last bullet in the gun. But we do need a report in order to go forward in this matter. All right, so we'll adjourn for an update on both files. That's 2401-836, and adjourn for an update on 24-01-305. My office has been in contact with the Center for Forensic Evaluation. We will recontact them with an indication that we've set it for an extended hearing out 60 days, and we'll set it for
March 6th at 1:30.
March 6th at 1:30. March 6th at 1:30 on both files. Anything else for the record in docket 24-01-836 or 24-01-305, Mrs. L?
Not for the people.
Mr. Austin.
Nothing additional by Mr. Hurd.
All right, Mr. Hurd, we've set this out so we don't lose track of the control date, and the Forensic Center should be out to update this, and then we'll go from there. All right, sir?
Good.
All right. That's all for the record in 24-01-305 or 24-01-836. Thank you, everybody, for your appearance today.
Thank you, Judge.
You're all set, Mr. Hurd. Thank you, Mr. Austin. So, sir, in Ingham Jail Post 2, would you please identify yourself?
My name is Richard David Rios.
Mr. Rios. All right, Mr. Rios, we're going to call your case in a second. Your attorney is Miss Robinson, and she's in another courtroom right now. All right, sir?
Yes, sir. Your Honor, do I just stay here and sit, wait?
Yeah, absolutely. Your attorney left all her stuff here, so I know we're going on the record. We're just trying to track her down right now because she's in another courtroom.
Okay, I understand.
Mr. Rios, your attorney is with, on the record in Judge Ward, and she will be in this courtroom in I'd say 5 minutes.
No problem, sir. Will I have a chance to speak with her prior?
Yeah, if you require, we could have a meeting with her beforehand. I can place you in a breakout room with her. Let's see what she says. All right, sir?
Yes, yes.
All right, Mr. Rios, Ms. Robinson indicated that she'll explain to you what's going on. So I'm gonna call your case. So we're on the record in docket 24-03804. That's people of the state of Michigan versus Richard Rios. Will the parties please introduce themselves for the record? Mrs. Zell.
Gabrielle Zal, Assistant Prosecutor for the people.
Ms. Robinson.
Karen Robinson, Assistant Public Defender, standing in for Mr. Freeman, Assistant Public Defender for Mr. Rios.
All right, and sir, you are Richard Rios, is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
All right, you can hear me all right, Mr. Rios?
Yes, there's a little echo, but I can hear.
All right, thank you. This is the time set for probable cause conference. I understand that Ms. Robinson is just stepping in for Mr. Freeman. Mrs. Zell, how are we proceeding today? Or would you like to defer?
Your Honor, I will defer to Ms. Robinson.
Ms. Robinson.
Your Honor, we'll just be leaving this set for preliminary exam next week.
All right. So this was a probable cause conference, and we're going to leave on for preliminary examination. We'll leave on for the scheduled preliminary examination on January 17th at 9 a.m. So, Mr. Rios, your preliminary examination has been left on for January 17th at 9 a.m. Mr. Freeman's the attorney on the case. And so if you have any questions concerning leaving on the prelim for next week, that is next Friday at 9, any questions should be addressed to Mr. Freeman. Anything else for the record in 24-03804, Mrs. L.
Not for the people.
Ms. Robinson.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, so Mr. Rios, we'll see you next week, next Friday at 9 a.m.
Sir.
Yes.
I've had I was arrested, I believe, the 29th or the 30th. Since then, I'm on Social Security disability, and the card that I have is at the alleged victims, so I'm not been able to get it.
Mr. Rios,
But-
I would advise you that you stop talking right now because everything that you say can be used against you right now. If you have questions about your case, you need to discuss those with
I
Mr.
need-
Freeman, okay? Well, I know,
need
but you're
to-
just hurting yourself
my
right now by
bond-
continuing
My
talking.
bond is, I'm saying my bond, I just trying to get out of here. I have
Right,
nobody to
Mr.
call.
Right, your bond is set at 5,010%, is my understanding. That can be readdressed. Mr. Freeman can bring a motion and it can be readdressed next week, but we'll see the nature. This is a 10-year felony, so you probably want to talk to a defense lawyer before you say anything else, all right, Mr. Rios?
Yes, I just wanted
All right,
to know
all
about.
right. All right, so that's all for the record, 24-03804. We will see you next week at 9 a.m. Thank you for your appearance today, Mr. Rios.
Okay.
Good morning. With the person in the Ingham County Jail, please identify yourself.
Montrell Johnson.
Thank you. We'll be with you in just a moment. We are looking for your counsel.
All right, so we're on the record in docket 24-03240. That is People of the State of Michigan versus Roy Lewis. Will the parties please introduce themselves for the record? Mrs. L.
Gabrielle Ezell, Assistant Prosecutor for the People.
Mr. Goodrich.
And Attorney Luke Goodrich from the Public Defender's Office, filling in for Stephen Milks today and representing Mr. Lewis, who is standing to my right.
And sir, you are Roy M. Lewis, is that correct? All right, thank you. This is time set for probable cause conference. My understanding is Mr. Goodrich is stepping in for Mr. Milks, who is in another courtroom. Mrs. L., how are we proceeding, or would you like to defer to Mr. Goodrich?
Your Honor, I would like to defer to Mr. Goodrich.
Mr. Goodrich.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, we would just like to leave this matter set for preliminary exam next week.
So we'll leave on for preliminary examination for the previously set preliminary examination of January 17th at 9:30. So Mr. Lewis, you'll get notification from my court officer of that January 17th, that's next Friday at 9:30. Anything else on the record in 24-03240, Mrs. L?
Not for the People.
Mr. Goodrich.
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Lewis, we'll see you next week at 9:30. Thank you for your appearance today. And Mr. Johnson on the polycom.
That is, yes, I identified him earlier.
All right, so we're on the record in docket 24-00311 and 24-01158. That is People of the State of Michigan versus Montrell Johnson. Will the parties please introduce themselves for the record? Mrs. L.
Gabrielle Ezell, Assistant Prosecutor for the People.
Mr. Goodrich.
And Attorney Luke Goodrich from the Public Defender's Office, filling in for Stephen Milks today and representing Mr. Johnson, who is appearing over Polycom from the Ingham County Jail.
And sir, you are Montrell Johnson, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you can hear me all right, Mr. Johnson?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. This is time set for probable cause conference on both of these files. Mrs. L., how are we proceeding?
Your Honor, it's my understanding that we will be leaving both cases on for a preliminary exam.
And is that a fair statement, Mr. Goodrich?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
So we'll leave file 24-00311 on for preliminary examination at the previously set time of January 17th at 9:30. And we'll leave on for prelim on 24-01158. Preliminary examination for January 17th at 9:30. And Mr. Goodrich is stepping in for Mr. Milks, but both of these are set for next Friday at 9:30. Anything else for the record in 24-00311 or 24-01158, Ms. Ezell?
Not for the People.
Mr. Goodrich.
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Johnson, we'll see you next week at 9:30. Thank you for your appearance today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goodrich.